Welcome everyone to Live Deal Analysis, where we're going to look at two deals that recently closed in the last month that will showcase people still doing action right now in the Denver metro market. And with me today is my fellow partner in crime, always solving lending problems, Troy Howell. How you doing?
Good, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And my name is Jeff White. I'm here basically to be your own company's host today to showcase these deals themselves, because I was involved directly as the realtor on these transactions. So let's go into it.
Yeah, and myself as the lender on it. So we are truly intimately involved with both of these.
Great. So I'll share my screen. Okay. Did everyone see that okay?
Looks good.
Great.
Looking good.
Okay, first disclaimer, Troy and I are definitely not trying to provide any tax, legal, or financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. So it's more of like a learning lesson for all of us here. So we're just want to put this disclaimer out there. So please read this really quick and understand this is just for learning and not for us to give any financial, legal type of advice. Okay. Again, this is Chris is not on this one, but Troy and I are here today. And we are both involved in both these deals. Troy's lender, myself as a realtor. So we could definitely speak very highly of these types of deals. Okay, so let's dive in. Troy, do you want to talk a little bit about what Fannie Mae recently did to change the 2 to 4 unit owner-occupied financing down payment requirement?
Yeah, it's been actually a really big deal. Pretty surprising, but I think it's very welcomed that they've adjusted the down payment requirements for multi-unit properties. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, in the past, if you did a single family, you could do 3% down if you're a first-time home buyer, 5% down for a single family, and then you were putting 15% down on a duplex, and then 25% down on a 3 to 4 unit. But they changed things to where you can do, as long as you're owner occupying, you can do 5% down on any of those properties. So a single family, duplex, 3 unit, 4 unit, as long as you're owner occupying it, which is what we're going to talk about here, on a fourplex, you can do 5% down, and you get more favorable terms. The pricing, the interest rates, the cost for that interest rate are definitely sharper than doing it as an investment property, but just as good as a single family, very close on the pricing. So it works out very well, and it'll be very helpful to a lot of investors. And we happen to have a great client that jumped in there and took advantage of it right out of the box. I think we're one of the early ones, not the first one, at least within my company that I'm aware of, that did a 5% down owner-occupied fourplex.
Absolutely. And I think that's something so huge that it's a big takeaway from this call. If you guys remember nothing else, everyone listening, it's you could buy a duplex or a single family up to a 4 unit with only 5% down if you're willing to owner occupy it for 1 year. Is that correct, Troy?
100%. Yep.
Yeah. Assuming they qualify, of course, for the fourplex. Yeah.
But that's kind of the beauty we'll talk about, and I'm sure you'll have this as we go through it, is that those additional units help you qualify. There is some calculations used on the rental income from those other units that help overall. So you can actually qualify for a little bit more price point with a duplex, 3 unit or 4 unit than what you might be able to with a single family.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely dive into that. So yeah, let's get into it. So this particular client came to me around Q3 of 2023, and they pretty much were setting their expectations. They were going to close first quarter of 2024. They weren't even looking in 2023. And then when Troy told me about this 5% down conventional changeover, just changed the dynamic for them completely. So they were just looking and said, oh yeah, well, we want to save a little more. We want to buy like a house with like a walkout basement, or like there's unofficial duplexes that are houses with mother-in-laws, houses with walkout basements, houses with ADUs. And then this new Fannie Mae rule change, Troy told me, and then I told all my clients. And then because of that change, they moved up their timeline from Q1 to 2024 to let's try to get something in Q4 of 2023. And basically we started the search on duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and we found this great one right in Arvada, close to Old Town Arvada. And it was a standard of box fourplex that was 2-bed, 1-bath each unit. And the client was basically saying, okay, well, we want to find a fourplex, but we also want one that doesn't have these long-term leases. So this one was also nice because it was in the Denver metro area, close to things, and also had the majority, 3 out of the 4 leases were month to month. And we'll get into that, why that's important later. But basically they wanted that flexibility so they can move in right away and also attract higher quality tenants at higher than market rates. So going to a little bit more about the property itself, it was, like I said, right now, Arvada, 2-bed, 1-bath each unit. Each unit was exactly the same size, about 950 square feet. So pretty good size units for 2-bed, 1-baths. And this one, it was an investor selling 4 other fourplexes in the same like half-mile radius. And he pretty much wanted an $800,000 price point and wasn't willing to come down. And in the market for Denver metro, and Troy, you can answer this too. How many fourplexes do you see priced, below, even like below $1 million? Usually.
Oh my gosh. I mean, they're kind of pretty rare, rare. That was a great find on your part.
Yeah. So that one attracted my buyers, and basically because it was priced $800K, it's like you're buying, another way to associate is like you're buying a 2-bed, 1-bath townhome unit for $200K. And if that number makes sense and you can attract higher rents than what the current market's rents are, sometimes multifamily makes sense. And Troy, on this one, because the guy was stuck at $800K, my buyer was willing to go over asking because we knew it was worth more than what the price was. So we did $810,000 over asking price with a $10K seller credit. And Troy,
Right.
What does that $10K mean if it appraises at $810,000?
Yeah, what that meant, especially in this situation, is that it took care of all the closing costs, a little bit of a buy down on the interest rate. And so it made it more just, hey, all you have to come up with is a 5% down payment. So it's skinning things up, and it made it more efficient for the borrower to get into the property.
Yeah, and Troy, with those month-to-month leases, since majority of the place is month-to-month, below market rents, how did your underwriter count those rents, or did you just trust the appraiser, like market rents from that? Like, how does a lender look at it from that point of view?
Yep, great question. Typically, they're going to look at what the appraiser shows market rents. It so happened that the appraiser came up with pretty much what the current month-to-month rents were in the property, which I think are low, and you'll talk to that a little bit more later. So fortunately, we had great borrowers, good strength on their part, and of course the price point wasn't super duper heavy. So those they helped a bit, but they didn't help as much as they could have potentially, because what the appraiser is going to do is go to the market. What's the market bear for something like that? And then we're going to discount it from an underwriting perspective conservatively by 25%. So if you got a $1,000 lease, just for simple numbers sake, they're going to give you $750 credit for that lease to count for vacancy factor, cost, all that kind of jazz. But $750 is better than nothing, and it does help boost you for what you can qualify for.
Definitely, and that's the true power of multifamily as well,
Yep.
because you're only living in a single family house. You have to qualify by yourself and your income. Multifamily, the lender gives you credit for 3 of if you're buying a fourplex, they give you credit for 3. If you buy a duplex, the other side, and then a triplex, 2 of the units. So that's the true power. But of course, the lenders can go off the conservative appraiser approach, which makes sense. So is it true that the appraiser just usually they'll just be more conservative in nature, and they won't necessarily even look at the leases that are there exist right now.
Yeah, they're supposed to kind of look at what the market rents are bearing out there and get some of that data to put in there for us. But again, it can vary a little bit from appraiser to appraiser. So nothing to count on 100%, but it is helpful. And as long as we calculate it upfront correctly and conservatively, it's going to work just fine. So somebody's at their absolute qualifying limit, and that becomes a component that gets them over the top. We want to make sure that it's realistic and that the appraiser doesn't screw things up later on when they do their appraisal, and then we have to look at it for underwriting purposes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, real quick, Jeff, before you move on, I wanted to point out something that you did I thought was awesome on this with your search for the properties for the fourplexes. This complex was represented, these units were represented by a commercial real estate agent. So you jumped in there and did a great job, because the city of Arvada was looking at buying these up, and getting it negotiated and worked in there, I thought was awesome. So it helped with the price point, but your expertise and willingness to negotiate it out really made a difference for the borrowers on this, the buyers of this as well.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it, Troy. Thanks for the shout out. Yeah, it's definitely, commercial brokers are different than residential ones. And
these guys were good, but they're not your typical residential real estate agent.
Absolutely. And then to go dive a little deeper. So this one, because all the leases except the one, the lease that the unit they're moving into was vacant. So they were lucky that they could just move in right away. But all the other leases were $1,200 a month. So this is kind of basically a game plan where they're going to have to stabilize it. And while living there, renting out the other units at $1,200 a month, they're going to be negatively cash flowing $2,400 per month as they turn over units. So this one's a good example of like, okay, how much would you pay for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in the Denver metro market? I would argue probably like $2,000 at least, depending on what spot of town you're in. So it's kind of like they would pay $2,000 a month anyways to live in a 2-bedroom, but now they own the whole building instead of just paying $2,000 to a landlord or property manager. So what's great about this one, it will illustrate in a sec how when you turn them over, the numbers get better. That's the power of house hacking. So as they turn over 2 of the units, and the strategy they want to use is Section 8. The reason why they want to do Section 8 is the market rent was, according to their appraiser, and the current rents on it were about $1,200, but market really is closer to $1,500, $1,600 based on what I've seen over there. Section 8 pays above market. They're paying $2,201 for 2-bedroom units. So that's the big appeal about this one. It had the month to month. 3 of the 4 units were month to month. So it's already flexible tenants that weren't locked in at $1,200. So it's just a matter of turning people over. And in this second slide here, as they turn over 2 of those tenants, they will only be negatively cash flowing $600 a month, basically. And they still have their own unit, and they still have one more tenant at the below market rents. So that's a true powerful indicator of like, hey, they bought this thing at 5% down, and they're going to get basically almost live for free as they keep turning over each unit. And as they get that last one turned over, they'll actually be cash flow pretty much break even, call it like net break even, as a 5% down conventional. What was the rate they locked in at, Troy?
6.99, so just under 7.
So basically locked in at 6.99, and going to get a awesome live for free at 6.99 in a 4 unit at $800K.
Right.
Amazing at 5% down, and that's only by turning over units to Section 8. And then this is my favorite slide, is when they move out a year from now and they turn over all 4 units, including the unit they're living in, they'll be cash flowing $2,200 a month. And Troy, how many deals do you see cash flowing this much for 5% down?
Yeah, not a lot. And so
yeah, 6.99.
Yeah, but even with, back a few years ago, it was like you could pretty much buy anything in a cash flow, right?
Yeah,
because the rates were so low. But with this current rate environment that we're in, just having something work out this nicely is awesome. It really is. It's doable, and you just got to find the right property and the right strategy, like we're talking about here.
definitely. Yeah, the true takeaway of this deal is they had saw undervalued property where it had below market rents at the $1,200 a month per unit. They're willing to live in one of the units for a year, and use this 5% down owner occupied conventional loan product, and basically turn over each of those month-to-month tenants and one long-term tenant to Section 8. And by doing so, 1 year from now, it will be an amazing cash flowing property, and they'll be ready for house hack number 2, and maybe even do another multifamily over there. That's the true power of house hacking, is reducing and eliminating your living costs and then cash flowing after moving out. So it's always important to look at while you're living there and after moving out. You don't want to just assume you're cash flowing day one while living there. That'd be great. But in the higher interest rate environment, if you can reduce your living cost, that is amazing. It's more to look at it cash flow after moving out. That's the difference maker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deal number 2. So this one, Troy and I have talked about a lot already. So
Right.
we already have a webinar on it that was posted on the channel already. And we've talked about it at the meetup. So this one we're very familiar with. It was a client that was looking for going from house hack 1 to house hack 2. And he just started a family, just had a new baby. And basically he was willing to do rent by room strategy to maximize his cash flow. As long as he had the whole upstairs to himself and his family, he's willing to rent out the whole basement because there's a separate entrance to the basement. And this particular one, he liked the Westminster area and wanted to stay around that area. And there's a lot of great single families that have a lot of value add for bedrooms and bathrooms over there. And that's exactly what we've found over there. Straight from the MLS again, very straightforward. And the big one on this story was, it was just a basic 5-bed, 2-bath house. Anyone could have seen this. It was a straight MLS deal on the market for 20 plus days. But the difference was my client had the eyes to see the value of okay, how could I add bedrooms and bathrooms? And basically, it was a great setup house. He converted the garage and added 2 rooms in the basement to make it 4-bed, 2-bath upstairs, 4-bed, 1-bath downstairs with a separate entrance. It's absolutely massive. And he wanted the upstairs for himself, and then it will rent out the basement to the family. So the numbers on this was, the price was $520, praised amazingly well at $532. And Troy, you talk about the loan product, because I know the loan was very interesting.
Yeah, it's I think people in the real estate community may be familiar with it. But not everybody deals with this stuff every day like you and I do. But it's a down payment assistance program that we kicked in for this buyer. It worked out great. It comes in with a piggyback second. There's some programs that are grants, and we try to take advantage of those when we can. This particular situation necessitated us using this particular one, but it still works out very well when you think of a chunk of money that is quote unquote borrowed, but you're not paying any interest on the outstanding balance. You don't have a payment on the outstanding balance. And so ultimately it just sits there like a lump on a log, right? A deed of trust is recorded against the property. So if you go to refinance or you go to sell the property, that loan, that second loan essentially has to be paid off. So you got to keep that in mind. But when you think, how many places can you run and get free borrowed money? No payment, no interest, just pay me off whenever you go to refinance or sell the property. So that, coupled with the first mortgage, gets you into the property super efficient. And then Jeff, you blew it out of the water with your negotiation prowess, and came in and negotiated a nice credit to the borrower on the contract initially, and then that got boosted up a little bit through the inspection process. So an additional $3,000 was put in there. I don't know if you're going to talk about it a little bit later, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but We had a huge amount of money to work with towards closing costs and everything, and really more than what we needed in this particular situation, or more than what we could use. And so we developed a strategy to help get some of this work done to the property, utilizing some of those funds. So the borrower went into it very economically with funds needed from him, but essentially came out a bit ahead once you take into account the improvements that were done to the property. As
Yeah,
you
that's
point out,
true. Power was the house was moving ready already. And we did a creative thing where we exceeded Troy's allowed seller credits. And all you have to remember there is basically it's more of a discussion with someone like Troy, like a professional lender. They'll explain to you what you're capped out with seller credits depending on your down payment. This person, because they were using down payment assistance, they didn't have the same amount of availability as the normal conventional loan. So we exceeded it and we had all those extra seller credits, but my buyer didn't want a price reduction because that's, like what would that be, Troy? Like $50 a month, $100 a month if the price is reduced.
Yeah, really, it benefits the payment slightly.
Yeah.
But you don't get all that stuff done. You're still coming out of pocket. So yeah, this works out great.
And then so we use that excess to pretty much fund improvements. So he is able to have the seller pay for adding bedrooms and a bathroom, all from the seller's pocket, with checks at closing. And that a lender like Troy is a huge difference maker for him. Is what separates him is he's able to understand that. A lot of lenders will say no to that, or they just won't understand it and just force you to do a price reduction. So thank you, Troy, for helping there.
Yeah.
And this is where another thing is we go back to the analysis, like, okay, look at it while living there and then while moving out. So this particular client, he wanted just to rent out the whole basement, all 4 separate rooms, rent by room strategy. About $750 per room is what this total rents are about. So 750 times 4 is $3,000 a month. And he had the whole upstairs for just his family. And by doing so, he's only, negative $1,500 a month. But obviously for the whole upstairs to himself. Absolutely amazing. And what was the rate on this one, Troy?
That one's more of a mid-7 because of the down payment assistance program.
Yep.
It tends to be a little more expensive, but it still got the job done.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of this one too. So he moved out of his current place where he was living up the whole upstairs, going to rent out all those rooms, moving into this place. So would you agree with this, Troy, is net for moving out of his current residence into this new primary? He'll probably be still living, like break even, cash flow neutral, just by willing to move from one property to the other.
Yeah, he's really good at doing that and understanding that. And, as that other podcast, we went into more details, and that can always be watched to get into more. And we actually interviewed him in that, which was great to go through. But it's just, it's probably the most aggressive, wouldn't you say, Jeff, as far as the house hack is to do the rent by room?
Yeah, if you're willing to do it, it's obviously while living there. If you're willing to live with roommates, you could definitely maximize your rental income, because a lot of these houses, the value truly is in the rooms, right? Not just the renting out a basement or like an addition. But yeah, if you're willing to be flexible, any of those listeners out there, if you're willing to be flexible, live with roommates, you could definitely achieve numbers like this or even better just by willing to have a few roommates in this market today.
Owning 2 properties, pretty much cash flow neutral with minimal cash into them is just stellar.
Absolutely. And then this is, look at these numbers. This is where it gets really crazy. Is he moves out after a year, rents it out all 8 bedrooms, and look at that rent number, Troy, $6,400 for 8 rooms. And it'll be cash flowing, $1,600 a month at a mid 7% interest rate. And what was his total out of pocket, Troy, to buy this place with the down payment?
Gosh, I mean, if you don't take into account the improvement numbers, maybe you're talking $3,000.
Wow. Yeah. So a couple grand. And basically you can see the $1,600 a month, he'll be able to equal his all-in cost. And mind you, he had the seller pay for all improvements. So his only cost to buy this place was just his, basically the small down payment he had to show for a chaff loan. And he'll be able to basically get a cash flowing property with basically nothing into it and be ready for house act number 3 in a year because of these amazing numbers, by willing to live with roommates and rent out rooms and move out of his current place. And Troy, would you say she'll, based on what you see here, do you think he'll be ready for number 3 a year from now if he implements this strategy?
Oh yeah. If he keeps his keeps the trend going. He's got his W-2 job, of course, because we're not qualifying solely off these rental properties. And he'll be in great shape because he'll have all the documentation and information. We'll have the 2023 tax return to work with in 2024, of course.
Yep.
And the new rental agreements. And then he may get a rental agreement for the departure rooms, right? He'll have 3 rooms to rent out when he leaves. So we'll get those in place and he'll be ready to rock and roll on the next property. And with a little bit better interest rates, he'll probably qualify for even a little bit more.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically that was just going through all the 2 different deals. And, if you really want to go into your own analysis or understand your own deals or stuff you're looking at, feel free to check out this QR code and schedule a consultation today with one of the advisors over here in Vision. And we'd be happy to help analyze any potential deals or deals you're curious about for your situation right now.
Right.
And also, if you're starting the process, it's always smart to start with a great lender like Troy Howell with Nova Home Loans. And same thing, the pre-approval is the most important part. You need that to get started. So definitely reach out to Troy. This is also another QR code to contact him directly and schedule a call with him.
Yeah, appreciate that. It's really important, I think. It serves so many purposes. To your point, Jeff, and what we've preached and talked about is just knowing where your limits are and being able to maximize your qualifying ability going in. And it helps a lot with the negotiation. So it helps me get you the information you need. So when you're submitting an offer, we know what strategy we're going to deploy and to best optimize it for the borrower, the buyer of the property. So, having some of this help come in with, seller credits and things like that can make a huge difference on your cash needed, obviously, the bottom line, but also that payment and then making the numbers work for the property while you're living there and when you go to move out.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And then here's our emails too, if you want to reach out to us directly. It's my email, and then Troy is right below mine.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to help. Happy to answer any questions, thoughts, and ideas. You got to start somewhere.
Yep. And that's pretty much the end of this presentation. Do we have, I'll stop sharing here.
We've got a few questions coming in.
Awesome. Let me stop sharing. Okay, go back here. Okay, here we go. All right.
Yep. Thanks for the shout out, Amit. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Amit. All right. Spastic said, with 5% down conventional loans, is there no more self-sufficiency requirements for 3-plexes and 4-plexes?
Excellent question. That applies with our friends over with FHA. So FHA has their own little methodology that they use for underwriting multi-unit loans that actually is a little more restrictive than Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, believe it or not. So they're going to use it a little more generously when you're dealing with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So no self-sufficiency requirement.
And Troy, can you give an example of that? Just like a highlight, like if I bought a 4-plex that was $1,000 per each unit, and with FHA, and let's say it was $1 million purchase price.
Yeah.
Like high level, like how self-sufficiency works, so people understand why FHA is.
Basically, a super condensed way to look at it is they want to make sure, as the term kind of states, that the borrower is capable of supporting it without some of that rental income. So they really tighten up how they look at those additional units, the rental income off those additional units. Duplex, not so much, but the 3 and 4 units they do. Where conventional financing is more straight up, hey, we'll discount the projected rental income for the market by 25% and then give you credit for that. Whereas FHA is a little harsher for you. So again, that pre-approval process can really help if we're gravitating towards using an FHA product to buy a multi-unit, that we kind of have our ducks in a row and understood what the capabilities are based on that underwriting restriction.
Great. And then Norman asked, does the investor with the multifamilies in Nevada have any more left? The answer is yes, Norman. Reach out to me and I'd be happy to, give you more information on it. But there are other ones still available at that 800K price point.
Excellent.
Cool. Any other questions? And thank you, Jules, for posting that link to the podcast for the deal number 2. We go really deep dive into that for all the nuts and bolts of it.
With the borrower on that. That one was great. Good. Anything else you can think of? Oh, we got another one.
Why were the rents below market? Was a lot. Stastic asks, thanks for the
just read it out loud.
Yeah. Stastic said, thanks for the clarification for deal number 1. Why were the rents below market value? Was there a lot of work necessarily to turn around the units? The rents were below market because the investor bought the fourplex or multiple fourplexes like 10, 15 years ago. And back then they were probably at market. And then sometimes investors just, they bought it for nothing, right? So why raise the rents if it's this easy property and don't fix anything? So they just left it at the 1,200 for the last, I would say probably 10 years at least for some of these tenants. And the reason they're below market is there's some deferred maintenance, like any property that's from 40 plus years old. That's especially a multifamily. You're going to see a little more dated type of property, but most of them are just average. I'd say average rental grade quality. Like there's a few updates, like some new cabinets, some flooring that's more updated, but overall more cosmetic stuff than the actual building itself. Like that's the difference on that one. And also because of Section 8, they just pay by bedroom count. They don't care about cosmetic finishes. So you could just have a basic rental grade quality unit with Formica countertops, old cabinets, white appliances, and you'll get the same rent versus if you had stainless. So there's no point of, over updating a place.
Over updating, yeah. And I think our borrower was planning on doing some freshening up with some paint and carpet.
Gene asks, how did you find the property listed by the commercial broker? So he listed, it was on the MLS. There was one property listed on the MLS, but actually it was part of a whole portfolio, but they only listed one. So when I talked to them, I found out there was these other units in that same area, and my buyer just wanted the one that had the most flexibility with the month-to-month leases, because sometimes you see this with a lot of older landlords as they renew all the leases right before they sell it. And then you're stuck as the new buyer with these leases until they expire. So my buyer wanted the most flexibility. And that's why they picked this building itself.
Yeah. Another little note on that, Jeff, too, that can pose a bit of a problem with occupancy, because when you're buying as a primary owner occupied, you need to take occupancy within 60 days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So if all the leases are term leases, they all end like 6 months, a year from now, then
you can't get in.
The lender wouldn't be able to approve it, right? Because unless you negotiate some type of buyout for one of the tenants.
Yes.
But, yeah, no, that's a good point.
Great point on your part too. Yeah. There is a way to work through it. You can buy them out, get them out of there, but yeah, you got to occupy the property within 60 days. So that's important thing to keep in mind.
Great questions.
Yeah, just a little detective work on your part with the commercial broker, and
yeah,
the whole little plethora of properties over there.
Yeah, the issue with commercial brokerage is it's more like broy, so they kind of I think it's like a frat house. So
that's what we talked about. When
you're in the frat, you're in the club.
Contract.
But if you're like a little residential broker like me versus commercial, they sometimes treat you differently. So you kind of have to overcome that barrier.
Yep.
To get in the frat. So
you bet. You're part of the frat now.
Yeah.
I'll vouch.
Well, it seems like the majority of the questions.
I think we're good.
So,
Great.
yeah, I would say
Thank you,
if anyone
everyone.
has any more questions, just reach out to Jeff or Troy, and
Please do.
definitely check out that podcast. That's in-depth details on that second deal. Yeah. Great
Cool.
job, guys.
Thanks, Jules.
Thank you, Stasik. We had a great time presenting
See
this.
ya.
It's we enjoy talking about deals, especially in the market like today. I think the big takeaway for everyone listening to, final takeaway is deals are still happening. This time of year is the best time to buy.
Yes.
Even in a higher interest rate environment, you almost have to create the deal. So just think about, okay, how can I make a deal work? It's not always obvious, like, oh, I have to go off market or I have to get a 100K price reduction. Can you use a creative strategy such as Section 8, Airbnb, rent by room? Can you make your own deal? And that's what separates the novice investor to the advanced level. And if you can make it work in this market, when rates do go down, and Troy has his crystal ball, he'll tell you exactly when they're going to go down.
Oh,
Just
yeah. If I did, I probably wouldn't be talking to you guys. I'd be like consulting, sitting on a beach somewhere. Right. They're getting better though. That's the good news, is that the trend in the market is improving with the interest rates. And so that's welcomed, but that's also going to stimulate some people to come off the sidelines, and we still have an inventory issue. So better sooner than later. I don't think waiting is a good strategy. If the numbers work and you find the right property, I think you go for it.
Yeah, and it's a long game too. Real estate, I would say the another takeaway too is the market like today. Best time to buy November, December, winter months for the state of Colorado, especially if you're in the state of Colorado.
Yes.
But if you think about it, like real estate's a long-term play. It's not, if you want to get rich quick, real estate's not that for you. But if you know you're going to buy and hold for many years, rates will come down, rates will compress, and then you'll be able to refi a lot of these higher interest rates. And then what happens, your cash flow goes from this to like that. And then that's where you truly build a great cash flowing portfolio. Doesn't happen overnight, happens over years, many years. But if you just look at it the long term, like 5 to 10 year period instead of a 1 to 2 year period, it'll make all the difference.
Right. And like you've done too with your own portfolio, Jeff, as you've gone through and analyzed it, optimized it, and found some more efficiencies within it.
Yep.
With your experience and what you need to do with management, with insurance, and just to make it the best it can be.
Yeah, it's something all of us investors have to look at. You can't just sit back. Like this particular fourplex is a great example of one that didn't raise the rents ever, basically, probably since they owned it. And it was easy, right? Like, why would those people move if they're paying below market rents for 10 years? So if you want to be the best investor, you have to kind of optimize your portfolio and look for ways to do it all the time.
Yeah,
and
you have some great strategies with that for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, and both these clients too, they both were willing to do it, and I'm excited to see what they do in the next year.
Yeah, and we're always going to be there to help and support them along the way. So even after we've closed these, we're still talking to them and working with them, and I think it's going to be awesome and they're not stopping here. They're not done yet.
Yeah. No, it's a long-term, like going back, long-term play. They want to get multiple properties. And also, Troy, it's like, what's the requirement? 1 year requirement to live in this place, and then they could rinse and repeat one year later. They don't have to stay in the property more than that.
Exactly. Perfect.
Sweet.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday. I got my snowman too.
Yeah, the other shoulder.
He says hi.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Yep. Catch you at the next one.